right. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Kathy Andrews. I'm a senior librarian at the Salinas Public Library, and I'm happy to be hosting today's event. I welcome you all back to our first Friday art talk of the fall season. I would like to give a special thank you to the two artists who are helping us out by presenting today, Shuyi Qi and Pam Carroll. Each of the artists will have half an hour, which includes their presentation or a conversation about their artwork, and then time for questions for us. We would like to hold off on questions till the end of each individual artist's presentation. If you could go ahead and write your questions into the chat box, and I'll be monitoring the chat, looking for the questions, which we'll do for each artist. I'd also like to let you know that we are recording today's video so we can share it with people who are not able to join us. If you would like to not be, so let's go ahead and get started. Our first artist this afternoon is Shuyi Qi. Shuyi is a realist figurative artist. She specializes in oil paintings and believes that art should capture the essence of an object so that a viewer not only sees it, but feels it. She also engages viewers with narrative compositions like the dynamic poses in the old master paintings, which she studied during her postgraduate art residency at the Prince Charles Royal Drawing School in London, which she was able to attend thanks to UC Davis Art Department, her alma mater. So let's, I have to say, we're very excited for both these artists, but Shuyi, please go ahead.
It's great to meet you all. But before I get started, I just want to first, you guys know my Instagram where I post my art. So that's Zorocan_art, and my website and my email as well. So that if you have any further inquiries, yeah, feel free to email me. So this is kind of a unique way to start off. This is actually something that I drew when I was around 5. And I do this because I think that, you know, an artist's sensibilities is best gauged and is sort of like most raw and early stage before it gets influenced by the trends of the world, which may or may not be a good thing, but but as you can see here, like I'm already very much into defined forms and very less into abstraction. So fast forward to around when I was in high school, around like 2010, 2014, really started to learn how to render forms, especially on the left here. This is a drawing of a Spanish woman, but the main focal point of this drawing is really her dress and, you know, the sketch, the sketched accuracy. So it's mainly about technicalities and very less so about who she is or, you know, what she's doing exactly. On the right here is a sketch that I'm starting to move more towards finding narrative behind the eyes and having the main focus really be the expression rather than just rendering accurately for accuracy's sake. I'm still, you know, focusing on the technicalities here at this point, but mainly just doing it as like a supporting cast towards the main star of the show, which is the narrative behind the eyes. This is, by this time, I am in college at UC Davis, and on the left here is Seaside Reflections, which is, maybe many of you are familiar with this, but it's actually about Point Lobos. So it's very famous outcrop here in Central Coast. And on the right here is Discovery. So this one is more inspired by Norman Rockwell, especially from The Child. And below is this kind of abstraction from my own imagination. And actually, you know, when I was, you know, doing the study for this, I was thinking that I noticed these tessellation of like parallelogramic shapes in the water. And by seeing these abstract shapes, I was reminded of how in Plato's Republic, he defined the good and the forms, which is this metaphysical abstract realm upon which provides the template for our physical realm. So I should also mention that I did study political science when I was in UC Davis, so that's probably where that comes from. But that kind of got me thinking, like, what is if the metaphysical world informs the physical world, what informs the metaphysical? And that gets into questions about spirituality, which is also a very interesting path to go down. Moving forward, so this is, as you can see, that those two paintings were part of my water series of paintings that I exhibited at UC Davis Alumni Center back in 2018. So this is an example of still life, and actually it's of a window display of glass figurines up in Sausalito. I really wanted to capture objects on 2D, but to the point where you can really feel the 3D, so that you can feel like you can reach into this painting and grab the objects. And this also kind of goes off of like learning more about reflections from water and reflections onto glass. So it's quite a pretzel-like composition, because you can see the reflection of the viewer in a sense, which is, as you're looking into this, you can see yourself reflected onto the glass cherries, but you can also see being reflected from outside the blue sky, and you can see through the window into the light from the back, and also the light coming up from the bottom, and also the sky coming from the bottom as well. So it's a very complex composition here, but one of my favorite pieces that I've done. So this is Through the Looking Glass, and I was very lucky to be awarded the Award of Merit at the California State Fair Art Show back in 2018. And again, it kind of goes out that concept too of distortion of light and glass and reflections. And it's actually a picture that I was taking when I was interning up at Sacramento, and we were at a Napa wine conference, and clearly I was not very paying attention that much, but all for art, right? And this is a picture of me at the state fair. So towards the end of my time at Davis, I wanted to really focus on figures. So this is the fall, and it depicts Yuna Kim, and is quite inspired by Wayne Thiebaud, who's a famous professor and artist himself, of course, up at Davis. And he's now 100 years old and still painting, which is quite amazing. So I really learned from him how to use colorful colors and how to lay the paint thickly to create this very solid type of a feeling. And also, I wanted to study dynamic pose. And dynamic pose, as I interpret it, is mid-motion. And that's how you can get motion into a 2D still frame, because you're not looking at a person, you're looking at a painting of a person. So that's the challenge of representational type art, which is trying to get people to get rid of that intermediary and make them feel like they're not looking at a painting, they're looking at a person here. And I want to tell her story through this pose. She's someone who's very accomplished in her sport, and quite frankly makes what she does look very easy. She pretty much never fails during competition, but I saw her fall during practice, and that to me, in kind of one fell swoop, told me like how much she had to sacrifice for her sport just from her body alone. So this is during my time at the Royal Drawing School in London, and they had 3 types of classes. One was museum focused, one was outdoors focused, and one was studio class focused. So this is a picture of me at the National Gallery, drawing from the Consecration of Saint Nicholas by Veronese, which is from the 1500s. Yeah, this is more detailed. I was also including the contemporary feel of the visitors and trying to weave in the composition in a seamless harmonic fashion into the existing painting. One of my most favorite museums that I visited a lot was the British Museum. And actually, they have a room where it's full of old master drawings, the real drawings themselves, that you can make a free appointment to, basically kind of order off a menu. It's like, okay, I want Raphael, I want Da Vinci, I want Rubens, which is depicted here. This is Rubens. And basically, I only had about, because I ordered so much, I only had about, maybe 10 minutes with each drawing and trying to learn as much as I can from the old masters, as if they were there themselves. And the painting that I spent probably the most time with is actually not very well known. His name is Vincenzo Faux and this is the Adoration of the Kings, and from the 1500s as well. So old masters and medieval type Renaissance art is a lot like dioramas. The language of the narrative is embedded in the posture and the body language. So you can see one of the kings is pointing to the kneeling figure, which your eyes drawn upwards to Jesus and Mary and to Joseph. And then if you follow the figures zigzagging backwards, it's a very purposeful, deliberate way of composition. And here's another tip too, if you want to analyze old master and Renaissance art, is if you take a straight edge and you find an angle between two figures, say the kneeling figure and Mary, and you shift it across, slowly shift it across the painting, you will see where else that angle hits. Because the artists there are very intentional with this. They really do want to draw your eye first to the front and then slowly towards the back. And this is the School of Love by Correggio, also from the 1500s. And I actually took my glasses off to draw the study here, which is why it's not that accurate. But actually, because my vision was so blurred, I was really only able to pick up on the most important parts of the painting, which is, parts where the light shine had the most highest contrast. And that's really what, representational type art is about, the relationship of light against other objects. So you can see how the knee, the man's knee is kind of emerging out of the shadows, and how her hip is also sort of jutting out of the shadows as well. So the London Gardens is one of my favorite type of classes that they had. This is Kew Gardens from the Royal Botanicals. I highly recommend going there. You can see all sorts of fauna from, throughout the British colonies. So on the left here is from Kew Gardens, from the photo that you saw. And actually I was taking notes from the Chinese traditional artists that I saw in the British Museum and how they were able to create scale and create depth as you go further back. And on the right here is a drawing of basically a steeple emerging out of nature, which is basically how cities are. They're kind of emerging out of the surrounding nature. Basically, it's how I saw London, essentially. That's why I didn't add too many borders. I wanted it to seem kind of like there wasn't that too much of a separation. This is a studio classes at RDS, basically a place where I also learned for the first time printmaking. And etching is very interesting. For those who don't know, basically it's taking a metal plate and carving the words, words or carving images into it. You can do it through acid, or you can do, some kind of metal pen, and you mop it up with ink and you put it on a piece of paper, and boom, you have an image here. So this is actually based off a photo that I took from Kew Gardens of a pond that was very reflective. And this is Four Winters, and this is an example of Shinkalee, which is basically, in addition to mopping up with the ink on the plate, you have thin pieces of colored paper, or it doesn't have to be colored, but you have thin pieces of paper and glue. And so when you put it on the larger piece of paper, you have very colorful images. So this is actually 4 images from the same metal plate. So after coming back from London and spending time during quarantine, is a great time for art, essentially. And I really wanted to take the ink wash lessons that I learned from the artist at the British Museum to try my hand at also traditional Chinese art. I am from China, by the way. I was born in Beijing, so I do have some affinity for it, but I never really fully studied it. And I'm also a fan of animation. So one of the animation that was set in the 70s, had this music that really kind of, I felt like fit this. So let me know if you guys can hear this or not, but I made a short little video. Yeah, so that's a little bit different from what I usually do, but hopefully I can explore it more going forward. Yeah, so this is a Return of the Lost Son, or Return of the Prodigal Son. For those who don't know the story, it's essentially about a wayward son who returns to his father, and to his surprise, his father is receiving him with, forgiveness so willingly. And the Bible says that this is the character of God towards us all. And this is actually based off of Beetoni's another painting by Beetoni, and I actually just changed only a few things to how I thought it should be, essentially. But it's a painting from the late 1700s. So I aged up the son, and I exchanged the expressions of the father to be a little bit more warm. And that is where really telling narrative behind the eyes and postures and body language is something that I really like to emphasize. Because I feel like that was very technically executed, but I felt like it could have been pushed more. Yeah, this is also an example of dynamic pose, and it's dynamic because it's, again, mid motion. The hand is coming up to cover the man in front with the cloak, which is why in one single motion it tells the story. And yeah, just before I finish, I want to show you guys a video that I made that details the process that went into this painting. And it's quite big. It's about 36 inches by 48. Not big for some. It could be bigger, but it's pretty big for me. And yeah, that's thanks for listening, guys. I'm open to any questions.
Shuyi, I really appreciate seeing the process that you're using, so illustrated there. Thank you very much. That was a really interesting look at your work. Folks, I'd like to remind you, if you've got questions, please type them into the chat. Shuyi, I know you mentioned your professor Wayne Thiebaud as an inspiration. What were some of the early inspirations for you?
Early inspirations actually probably came from my father, who's, although he's not artist by trade, he was, and he never studied art, professionally, or had, just had like an instructor, or any of type of that. But he has great memory, and he was able to very accurately sort of remember his childhood home and his childhood village in China. And I didn't have many photos of my paternal grandparents, or even further back before then. So I really kind of relied on his drawing of my grandfather and any other relatives that he himself seen, but I have not.
What is it that keeps you motivated right now?
Well, my day job is designing, doing UX design for websites and apps. So, really, I just want to make use of my free time to continue to learn. And actually, if you check out my Instagram, you'll see that I'm doing a lot of memory drawing exercises where I basically look at a painting for about a couple seconds, trying to take in as much as I can in those brief moments, and try to draw it out. And then after I draw out as much as I can, I go back and look at the painting again, and I'm drawing over the first drawing, but now from observation, so in a different color too, so you can see the difference between where I got things right, where I didn't. And that sort of helps me, I think, in the future. I just want to be able to look at something and try to, and draw it and render it as best as I can, versus having a model sit for me for hours and hours.
Very good. Nicole is wondering, she has commented on how beautiful your work is, and is wondering if you have a favorite style between, say, landscape and figurative, and why.
I think I kind of like oscillate between the two. I don't really have a favorite per se. To me, it's more about, telling a story. If figures can tell the story better than landscape, then, that's the one I'm focusing on. But also, I kind of go through like phases where I get really into figures, or, non-landscapes. And then I kind of, to the point where maybe I get tired of it for a point, and then I just do something else like landscape, and I kind of go back and forth between the two.
Very good. Audience, are there any other questions at the moment? Okay, Shuyi, that was really wonderful to see all the things you shared with us. So interesting that you were able to study in London, as well as here in California. And before I introduce the next artist, I want to take just a moment to tell you about an upcoming program we have. It's our new National Novel Writing Month program. So you may not have heard of National Novel Writing Month, but chances are good you know someone who may have tried it. The month of November is National Novel Writing Month, and for the last 22 years, NaNoWriMo has been encouraging authors to sit down and get to work and write 50,000 words during the month of November. It can be an inspiration. There are both published authors and aspiring authors who use the focus provided by NaNoWriMo to sit down and get some serious writing done. At the end of November, you don't necessarily have a novel ready to go, but 50,000 words is a big chunk of a novel. Our program is aimed at adults who are tackling NaNoWriMo. It's a 6-week wraparound writers group that will help with things by, for example, our warm-up week that starts October 25th will help you be ready to hit the ground running on November 1st in order to start making progress towards those 50,000 words. There's check-in support and a private channel for group communication. We have a published author who's going to be providing mentorship throughout the month, the 6 weeks. It's a chance to learn and improve your NaNoWriMo technique. It's also a chance to have some fun in talking with other writers. And then there's a post-Nano celebration check-in in December. Group members will also get priority enrollment for writers workshops that we have tentatively planned in 2022. There's limited seating, so we encourage anyone who's interested. And again, if it's not something that you necessarily want to do, chances are good you know someone who might be interested. I've posted a link to register. The orientation is on Wednesday, October 13th from 6:30 to 7:30. That's open to as many people as want to come, who may be gathering information about what our program will do. And I'll stick around at the end of the event. So if you have any questions or would like more information, we're happy to provide that. So with that, I'm happy to introduce our second artist, Pam Carroll. Pam was born and raised in Southern California and embraces the traditional techniques of realism and painting from life. Her artwork is inspired by the early Dutch and Spanish masters, as well as contemporary realist painters. Her work focuses on showcasing the beauty and inherent truth in everyday objects. And we're going to do this as a conversation between Pam and myself. And I'm going to bring up her webpage so we can get a look. Let's see at some of her paintings. So give me just a moment.
This will give me an opportunity to say hi to Lolly and Bob. Thank you. Beautiful to see you folks. And Will, you look great. Will, you didn't have to tune into this, but I appreciate it. And Jeff's in there and Sally. So, and Mary Kay, my dear friend, I love you all. Thank you for showing up. And I'll let Kathy take over now.
Very good. I'm delighted we have some of your fans with us today.
Well, everybody knows Will Bullis, of course, who's a phenomenal artist, and Jeff Beckham is a phenomenal artist as well. So they might be your next speakers.
There we go. Yeah, I'm taking notes.
Okay, great.
All right. So, I wonder, Pam, if you could give us kind of a short overview of your background, including what got you started with art.
Well, following Shuyi, it's going to be pretty hard because I am self-taught, and I wasn't the best student in the world, but I always loved drawing. I started drawing dogs at the age of 6. So I've always had my hand in drawing, painting, crafts, lots of crafts, knitting, whatever I could do with my hands, I did. And I didn't really get into fine art until my son was in high school. And that's when I started to really paint in earnest. And in my 30s, I was really into photorealism and doing well with that. And then I got married and got pregnant and became a full-time mom. So, which was the joy of my life until my son was in high school. And that's when I pursued fine art and decided to get into oils, which I love, and work from life. And I really enjoy creating still lifes, and I guess that's what I can say about that. But so my start was just always loving to draw and getting into art.
I think that's one of the really helpful things that happens when people attend our First Friday Art Talks, because our artists span the whole spectrum of how they got started, from self-taught to extensive schooling, which I think is an important piece of information for aspiring artists as well. When you were getting started and working on your craft, were you always drawn to realism, or did you try out some other styles?
No, I've always loved realism, always gravitated toward it. And making things look real, just, I was always in hot pursuit of that. And it takes a long time. It was just years and years of looking. It's kind of like looking through a camera lens. You just kind of dissect every little part of what you're painting. And every day you come back to it and you see something you didn't see the day before. And working from life is just very challenging perspective wise, but it's so rewarding because you get to know your objects and what you're working on in a really intimate way. I don't know, it's really fun. I do love that part of it, really getting to know my objects and seeing how far I can go with it.
What's your selection process for the objects or subjects that you're going to paint?
Well, as you can see, I'm a pretty diverse as far as my compositions. So I'll do a series of toy paintings and get totally sick of those. And then I'll go into maybe fruit and vegetables, and constantly looking for objects that might be good in a painting. I was doing trompe l'oeil, which is, people know, is really fool the eye in French. And like Off the Road is an older painting that I found that frame and I painted a little landscape, and I had that old toy car. And so I did many of those kind of paintings where they were really fool the eye. It was just a fun painting. And the frame, my husband used to do all the photography, so that inadvertently got cut down, but the frame is a little bit larger in the actual painting. And but I did that probably 15 years ago. I just really enjoyed doing the trompe l'oeil, but I've kind of gotten away from that. And I do them once in a while, where you feel like it's almost magic, it's.
What's is that a secret location, the background, or a famous location?
I'm actually working on a little painting right now with a car and a little ocean scene. I'm gonna put the Pebble Beach cypress tree in that on the rock. But this, I probably used maybe 3 little landscape paintings I found in books or whatever. And then I kind of make up things when I'm doing a background like that.
Could you talk a little bit about how you stage items for painting?
Well, I have a sculpture table in my studio that's kind of tall because I stand when I'm painting. And I usually put a board on it so it's larger. And I set up objects, and then I spend hours just rearranging and rearranging until I can get something that looks kind of decent. I should draw it out on a piece of paper, but I'm too lazy to spend more time doing that. So I work on a white canvas and draw it out, unless it's fruit or objects that are lifelike. I don't usually, I just paint those in when I start. I'll sketch them in. But I usually draw with a pencil and accurately, as accurate as I can. I use lots of rulers, and I close one eye a lot of times to just kind of fuzz out my objects, and kind of, it helps when I'm painting. That's a little trick that I use, and I'm just constantly measuring with a pencil or my rulers to get as accurate as I can when I'm working on like a box, like game box or something that does have a lot of perspective in it. Anyway, and I just keep working it. A lot of times I have to make adjustments during the painting process because something isn't quite right.
And are you working on canvas or board
I
or?
work on panels, so I work
Mhm.
on either birchwood panels that are gessoed or masonite. And I like a stiff, hard surface.
Mhm.
And I think a lot of realist painters do like working on panels. And I use a lot of feather brushes to get like a soft look and get things mixed. So it's a lot of small brushes, a lot of feather brushes, and wide flat brushes for my backgrounds.
I see. Let me pull up another of your paintings, and if you could just speak about it a little bit, what you did and what made you put this particular set of items together.
Well, I found that it's a doll box. Yeah, it was kind of a large doll box. I found it at some thrift shop or whatever, and I had a few of those objects. Actually, the airplane is from Jeff Beckham, and that's made in Mexico to look like an old toy. And he graciously loaned that to me. And so that was the final item I needed to make that paint. And I had that story in my head. I was going to do around the world. And around the world's also, if anybody ever was using yo-yos like my age group did, that's another thing you can do with the yo-yo. You can do a trick that's called around the world. So there was double meaning in there. And that was a fun painting. Uh, I think I found a few other stickers and stuck those on there and then ripped them to make them look old. So a lot of times I'll scruff things up even more
Mm.
uh, to make them look more interesting.
Yeah, and it's interesting to see the texture of the doll box, and the metallic nature of the plane, train, and automobile. So
Yeah, it could have been called that too. Planes, trains, automobile. Good, Kathy. Okay.
And did you pick a specific globe? Can we recognize when it's from by what countries are there, or tell us a little bit
Uh,
about the globe?
I think the United States is kind of above. I can't remember. I painted that quite a while ago,
Mhm.
um, but I actually picked the part of the globe that had more ocean because I knew it'd be easier. And
Right, I hear you. Yeah.
yeah.
All right. I am a big gardener, so I am super interested in
Oh,
the three amigos,
the
and the
three
way that
amigos.
this really captures. I can just feel the weight of those pumpkins and squashes. So tell us a little bit about this one.
Well, Earthbound Farms every year has the best pumpkin patch. They have a variety of different pumpkins. So I go out there, I'll do pumpkins this year too. I do them every year. And so these had these beautiful ends on them, still has part of the vine. And when I was playing around with them on my setup, I just thought, wow, it might be fun to connect them. And then I just thought, yeah, they do look like three friends. They're all different, all different colors. And so there could be double meanings in this painting as well.
So when you've got something ephemeral like a pumpkin or a lemon, how do you manage that as you're doing the painting? Let me bring up your basket of lemons. I can just about smell them.
Oh, thanks, Kathy. Um, I don't know. I love doing fruit. I love doing things that are kind of round and they have bad spots on them, makes them more interesting. Um, when I approach it, and I also constantly look at other art. Claudia Bravo is an amazing, he's past Spanish painter. And there's so many gifted artists. And I'm always looking through my art books and studying them. And because I didn't study and go to school for art, I lean on these people and the contemporary artists. There's so many good realist painters today. I mean, we have David Laguerre in the community. He's amazing. And I have two other friends that are very famous artists. One's Alan McGee. He lives in Cushing, Maine. And the other is Daniel Sprick, and he lives in Colorado. They're both just like the best in realism. And then David does a lot of beautiful paintings that are inspired by Greek mythology. And he's an exquisite painter. So I'm constantly studying these artists. That's where I get my inspiration, and they help me. When I have a hard time with a background, boy, I go to the books and I just lift. I lift the colors and I look at what they're doing and study, and that's how I get there, and it helps.
Now, in looking at an artwork like this one, where you've got the contrast of the very organic nature of the lemon, the different sort of tactile surface of the cloth, which is then on top of another tactile experience of wood, and we've got the organic basket, the dried material. Is there anything you find when you're capturing all those different sorts of surfaces that you would share with us?
Well, what like got me totally excited about this setup was the light that filtered through that basket. I mean, I was like, oh, that's going to be so cool. So there's things when I'm setting up and I use artificial lighting. So I've got a spotlight on that, and I move my light around. I work on a tabaret, which is a moving table with the easel on top. So I move my easel around a lot and get closer and get farther away, and I'm playing with lighting constantly. So maybe I had the light so it went through the basket, but then I would move the light and get right on those lemons so I could get the shine really good and make them come alive more. So I'm always playing around. I move a lot in my studio. I walk back and forth all day long. So I should be wearing a Fitbit so I could see if I get my 10,000 steps in there.
So with realism, how do you know when it's done? How much realism is enough?
I think I'm getting better at that. I mean, before, for one thing, I used to put so much stuff, and it was like all I needed was the kitchen sink, and then it would be complete. But now I'm just being a lot more careful with how much I put into a painting. And I'm getting better at when it should be done and not overworking. And that, for these artists out there listening, walking back and forth is so, so important, that you just don't stay close to your painting all day. You walk back and you look at it. And sometimes maybe the brush strokes are just loose, but they work. So leave it. And that's what I've been doing lately. And it's really working out.
All right, let me bring up another of your paintings, which is delightful, with the painting and the car with the trailer and the beach and the fire.
That was my diorama series. So I did several paintings that had a painting behind it or a picture. And then I created this little vignette. And that painting, actually, I got it at a thrift shop, and probably made more scratches on it than it had, and drips and stuff. And this was just really fun. I love eBay, and found that toy on eBay and bid on it and got it. And then I went to the beach and got some sand, and I had it in my mind to do this. And I've done several of these kind of paintings over the years, and they're always kind of fun. So that was, and finding the wood. And then I thought, it should have a little fire pit too.
Mm-hmm. All right. I think those of us who have celebrated Christmas with old ornaments can relate to this one. Could you speak a bit about what's going on here?
This painting, actually, I've done, I think, 4 Christmas paintings to date. And I had that red box for years and used it in many paintings. And so I just thought, oh, I had already done a Christmas painting that was pretty intense, kind of like that. But I wanted to do one on that box because it was red and it'd be fun. So I just started going to Cannery Row Antique Mall during the holidays and getting some of those boxes. The boxes are just so wonderful. And I knew they'd be fun to paint. So the inspiration was just, what it's like when you get everything out at Christmas and it's a big mess and you always break a few balls. And so it was just a fun painting. I don't own any of these paintings. And, someday I've told myself I will do one Christmas one for me, but so far I haven't done it.
All right, let me, is there any particular painting that you would like me to bring up at this point?
Well, I think we've got Lolly and Bob that have quackers. They bought that little painting, and I've done quackers before, and it's just so much fun to do the crackers. They're just always so much fun. And anyway, doing toys, it's always kind of brings smiles to people's face. There's so much darkness in the world right now. And that's why I'm doing a little toy painting right now. I just need to smile more and try to just be present in the beauty of this area, and art and literature and music and the things that are so important for us to hold on to. I get emotional talking about it. It's a hard time for all of us.
And when you're working on a painting, do you have a sense before you start of how long the painting might take you?
I've gotten amazingly fast, and which I'm always shocked at how I can crank these things out. It depends, though. If I'm working on a basket, then it takes, because each little piece is like a painting. But working on a toy painting like this, and I work maybe 5 hours a day. After that, I'm seeing double. So this painting probably took a good week, maybe a week and a half. And so it depends on how large the painting is. And
very good. Are you a morning artist or a end of the day? Oh, okay.
Oh yeah,
very definite.
I like to start between 9 and 9:30 and have the kitchen all clean and ready to go. And yeah, I don't really like to take too many phone calls, or I just like to kind of get in the zone, and so to speak.
And is your kitchen your studio, or you
No,
like
I actually have a room.
Okay.
That's not real big, but it works fine. And it's I've been working. I like working in my home, and I had many studios because my husband and I used to buy and sell houses and fix them up, and so I've had lots of studios. I could probably work in a bathroom if I had to. It's the work. It's not the space as much as it is the work.
Very good. Is there anything else Pam, that you think we should know about your art and how you do it?
Just that it's a journey and I work hard. And for those artists out there that are getting started, that's all I can say is keep working, work hard. I know Marcia Perry's listening. She, and if you don't know, Marcia and Meg uh, run the Youth Arts Collective in Monterey. And it's a beautiful facility and they are amazing artists themselves. So that's another would be a wonderful interview for you, Kathy. Just thinking about that right now.
Very good. And I would say to the artists who are joining us today that we do 2 artists each month, 7 months out of the year. And we've done everything from realism to fine art to watercolor. We had a graffiti artist one time. So if you have any interest at all, we would love to have you join us for one of our First Friday art talks. Will mentions that you're equally brilliant at portraiture. Could you speak about that for a moment?
I'm not brilliant. Thanks, Will. I love doing portraits, absolutely. But who's going to sit for me, you know? And they want to be paid, no way. So, you know, I'm trying to make a living, just, you know. Anyway, doing portraits is totally fun, and I love doing them. And I'm hoping that one of these days someone will just say, I'll sit for you for free.
Okay. And folks, are there any other questions for Pam or for Shuyi? And Shuyi, if you wanted to say, I meant to ask you about what your workspace is. If you wanted to mention what kind of studio or non-studio you work in.
Yeah, so I am like Pam, where I enjoy working from home. So I have basically a space in a sort of like living room that I basically just use up that whole space for, you know, my paintings. Yeah, I quite enjoy. I've seen, like studios where artists share and stuff, but I actually just quite enjoy just having my own space, and you know, no better place to have that than home if you have the space.
Great. Okay. It looks like Sally Jean has mentioned Pam watching your work closely since the 90s and representing your work at the Carmel Art Association for the past 10 years. She says she wishes you could hear gallery visitors' responses to your paintings I'm guessing on a daily basis, like she has the pleasure of doing. So.
Well, thank you, Sally. I've been a member. Will's been a longer member than me, and Jeff's also a member. It's been there since 1927. It's a beautiful, beautiful gallery, and Sally is the gallery manager. She's amazing, and it's our gateway, I think, to Carmel. It's a wonderful place, and I think we have over 90 artists right now, and we have new shows every month. It's great. I'm also at the Chris Winfield Gallery. These galleries are both on Dolores and Carmel. And anyway, I'm very blessed to have these galleries and be able to get my work to them in about 10 minutes and not in different galleries around. And Shuyi, do you have your work in galleries at this point?
No, I do not. That is something that I have to figure out at some point.
Well, the Carmel Art Association, we'd love to have you. You're amazing.
Well, thank you. I think there is a requirement, though. You have to first shown in a gallery before you are at the Carmel Art Association.
But you had a show at Davis.
If that counts, I will try.
We'll talk. We'll talk.
Awesome.
Very good. All right, we're coming up on the end right now. I will stick around for a few minutes if anybody has any further questions. Let me also mention that since this is a recurring program, the link will work again if you want to visit us for any of our other upcoming First Friday art talks. You're also welcome. We have a registration link, and you can click off which months you want to attend, and it will send you reminders, etc. So we appreciate everybody coming today. Thank you so much, Pam and Shuyi. It's been just so much fun to see the work that each of you are doing. Very inspirational to
Thank
see
you,
such
Kathy.
fine art. And so with that, we'll bring this to a close. If anybody wants to unmute and ask a question yourself, this is a great time to do it, but otherwise we'll wrap up in just the next few minutes.
Yeah, just want to say thank you for having us. This has been really great.
Thank you.
Yeah, we love doing First Friday Art Talks because the variety of artists we've been able to showcase has been just fabulous. The different styles, the different personal histories, different ways people came to be making art. It's been quite fun for us. So.
Yeah, for sure.
Thank you, Kathy. You were
You bet.
great.
Well, it's my pleasure. My dad, as I mentioned, was an artist, and I got to see him doing art in all different stages. So it just is really fascinating to me to see other artists. All right. Well, thank you very much, everyone. I'll stick around for a few more minutes, but we'll Pam and Shuyi, again, thank you so much.
Bye, Bob and Lolly.
Bye, everybody.
Bye, everybody.
All right. Bye-bye.